Well, hello everybody. I'm Trackside Larry, and welcome to another edition of Late Night Larry, where I talk about, in particular, NASCAR subjects late at night from my garage. And the thing I'm going to be talking about today is something I already kind of discussed a little bit on Car in the Holler, but I want to discuss it a little bit more in this video today, especially after watching Cleetus McFarland's vlog of that Saturday at Rockingham Speedway. And some thoughts I've kind of changed about. I've kind of changed my tune a little bit on some stuff for sure. If you want to hear my pretty much immediate thoughts about Cleetus, I should have a card over here somewhere. It's also on my page for Car on the Hauler, and listen to what I have to say about Cleetus along with the rest of the Rockingham weekend. But I want to give my final analysis on Cleetus's Rockingham weekend as a whole. I first want to talk about the really good, and that was ARCA. And I'm just giving my overall opinion of Cleetus in NASCAR as well, because I know it's been a big discussing point, so I thought I would discuss it further here. First, I do want to talk about his ARCA Menards East race, because I didn't watch the whole race. I didn't really get the chance to watch the whole race, and then yesterday I also watched what I missed when it came to the ARCA Menards East race. I already gave him some flowers on Car on the Hauler when it came to his performance in the ARCA Menards East Series race at Rockingham, but I do want to give him some more credit because he raced his ass off. He honestly raced really well, really, like, surprisingly really well, and it made me believe that maybe Cleetus can become a driver. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to be a competitive NASCAR driver. I don't know if he'll ever be super competitive at like a Cup Series level or something, but I could definitely see him in his future becoming a competitive Truck Series or O'Reilly Series driver, because he's already somewhat competitive in ARCA, because he was racing against cars in that ARCA race. Some of those cars, a lot better race cars than he is, and a lot of those drivers a lot more experience than he is, even though some of those drivers like Tristan McKee are like half his age, but a lot of those cars are better than the Rhett Jones, I think that's the team, Rhett Jones, number 30, that he was racing in. Like, at one point he was racing around Max Reeves. Max Reeves didn't have the best day that I think he was hoping for, but he was able to make a pass on Max Reeves, and Max Reeves is driving the number 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Max Reeves, no matter what you think of Max Reeves as a person, you have to admit that he is a fast driver. Might not be the cleanest driver, might not have the best racing IQ or whatnot, but Max Reeves is definitely an up-and-coming driver. He was able to race around Jason Kitzmiller. He was able to make some passes on him. Those two were racing back and forth through a good amount of the day, and he was running top 5 all race long. Cleetus was. He looked very good. He looked really good in that ARCA Menards East Series race, which wants me to wants me to want him to race even more ARCA races, because I do think he can compete for wins at some point. If he raced this whole season in ARCA and raced every race in ARCA, I do think by the end of the year he would be running top 3 probably on a weekly basis. And when it comes to ARCA, all you need is the right time, the right restart, the right moment, and you could potentially take the win there. So I think he can compete in ARCA, and it's a really good stepping stone, I guess you could say, for him. So I would like for him to race even more ARCA races. And he, like I said, he did really well. He did really well in that ARCA Menards East race. I can't give him enough flowers because what he did was very impressive. Because like I said, all the teams that are racing around him, not all of them, but some of the teams that are racing around him are better race teams, and pretty much every driver in that field has a lot more experience than he is, no matter how old they end up being, like Tristan McKee, who ended up winning the race in that 77 in that race. Tristan McKee has a bright future, by the way. But let's get to the O'Reilly races, which is what I really want to talk about here today, and that is that maybe he didn't do quite as bad as I initially thought. He still didn't do great. He still did very bad. Let's not get it twisted. He still did bad, but also you have to add on top of that, you had to add the caveat of what was really expected. What was ultimately expected from this race from him. And that's one thing that's been kind of confusing me a little bit on social media with a lot of these people, because you have a lot of the Cleetus haters saying that he did completely horrible, that he's a joke and whatnot. And then you have the Cleetus supporters saying that this is exactly what he wanted to do. This was a great race from him. He completed the race. And in a way, they're both true. It's weird. It's a very weird sort of complex that we're in when it comes to Cletus's O'Reilly Auto Parts Series performance at Rockingham. He finished 6 laps down. That's, on paper, that is horrible. He spun out or came close to spinning out 4 times, or 4 times. Then he actually spun out 1 time. I did learn later on that, well, one of them I already knew that he kind of wasn't really his fault, and that was the one where Austin Hill got into his rear end, it looked like, and then it got confirmed when I watched the vlog. I was like, okay. They didn't say Austin Hill, though, because that's his teammate, so I think that's probably why they didn't mention on who it was. And then another portion of the race, he ended up getting doored by somebody on the inside. It was from his onboard, so I couldn't really tell if that was Cletus's fault or the driver that was driving underneath them's fault, but 2 of those almost incidents were with contact, so I will give him the benefit of the doubt on that. And then I think the number one thing that I was harsh about him when it came to my car on the hauler was at the very end of that race. I know a lot of you saw it. At the very end of that race, he was pretty much coasting around that track. He was going way slower than everybody else in the field. He looked like Ricky Bobby in his return test session, which is also at Rockingham. Oh, are those the other cars? Like, that's what I was going through my mind when I saw him at the end of that race at Rockingham. And in my mind, I'm like, he just wants to get this car to the finish. He doesn't want to wreck it. He doesn't want to do any of that crazy shit. And ultimately, that is kind of what he did. That is kind of what he did, but we didn't really get the whole story in that moment when he ended up spinning out. Actually, no, I think at that point it was a slide. He had the slide, actually. He had that big slide. When he had that big slide, it destroyed those tires, and he didn't have any more fresh Goodyears because he used them all up throughout the day. So he didn't have any more fresh Goodyears, so they had to put a set of 40-lap-year-old scuffs on the car. So at the end of that race, he was on roughly 100-lap old tires at the end of that race, which is something I didn't know at the time. And that explains a little bit more on why he might have been driving as slow as he did, because at that point, he didn't know what he didn't know at that point. He's never driven tires to that old, especially at a track like Rockingham, and he doesn't know what a blow-up's going to feel like at a NASCAR track like that. So I think he was just really playing it very safe at the end of that race. He felt how loose it made his car with those tires falling off. It made it loose and tight. That's just kind of that feeling you're going to get with the worn down tires. So at the end of this race, I think he was just playing it safe. So I'm not going to be as harsh on him about that as I was with the car on the hauler, because I didn't know that at the time. And yeah, at the end of that race, he was just really trying to protect his tires. He ended up giving up a couple of laps at the end of that race and just looked really bad. And overall, how do I just feel about Cleetus McFarland's performance? I would say I'm very on the fence about it, because like I said earlier, what was really expected? This guy has little to no experience racing at all, let alone racing in a professional setting. Obviously, he's had his Crown Vic races and all this other stuff that he races at the Freedom Factory, and he's raced all these different vehicles and driven all these different vehicles, but he's never really done anything professionally. And all these drivers that he was racing with do this as a profession. This is their job. This is their career. This isn't necessarily Cleetus's career. Does he want to make it at his career at one point? Maybe not. I would say probably not. I think he just wants to get really good at it, and that way he can compete and not necessarily get judged for it. He's just out there having a good time. I feel like he kind of wants to be like one of these retired NASCAR drivers where they just show up every once in a while and race some races just because they like to race and they want to race. And I think he wants to have the capability of doing that and being competitive at the same time. So I can respect that, and I'm seeing what he's been doing. He's clearly trying to get better. He spent a lot of time in the sim, spent a lot of time testing at Rockingham. He seems like he's very serious about getting better at this. And I liked watching his vlogs. It really showed his heart a little bit as well when it came to all that. So, like I said, I am very mixed about it, because what was there necessarily to be expected. But the two sides of that are, on one side, he didn't wreck the race car. He obviously had a little bit of damage, not very much. He had the damage from Austin Hill on the bumper, and then he almost wrecked himself early with that car sliding down the racetrack earlier on in the event, and he got nicked on his right side, and there was a little bit of damage there. But other than that, didn't really have any damage to the race car. So there was that. But then you had to look at the other side of the coin. He finished 6 laps down. And if he didn't have to put on those 40-lap old scuffs, he probably would have finished like 3 laps down. I don't really have too much of a problem with his finishing position. I would say I don't really have a problem with that because honestly, I didn't. If he got a top 25 going into the weekend, I would have thought that was a win for him with not having the experience and this and that. But finishing that many laps down in a very competitive race car, I just don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I'm very mixed about it. Because I'm also trying to take my personal bias out of it. And I think I have at this point because I do really like Cleetus, but at the same time, I like to be a realist. And if I'm being a realist, first of all, I'm going to say this. If I got offered to race at Richard Childress Racing, hell yeah. Hell yeah, I'm racing. I have less experience than Cleetus. I have even less experience than Cleetus. And if I got offered to race at Richard Childress Racing, I would say, hell yeah. I would love to race for Richard Childress Racing. But do I think he's ready for that jump to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series? I would say probably not. Should he get approved for Talladega? I would also say probably not. I would love to see him out at Talladega, but if I'm being honest, probably shouldn't be allowed to be on that entry list. I'm hoping, because he also didn't do any live pit stops as well. And that's something we got to keep in mind. And I think that's something that's probably going to hold him back for getting approved. We'll learn that at some point this week if he's going to get approved for Talladega. But I do have a feeling NASCAR are going to have him race at Kansas if he wants to race at Talladega. So we'll have to see what happens with all that. So I would say no, he's probably not ready for the O'Reilly Series. No, he's probably not ready to get approved for Talladega, but he definitely has the passion for it. There's definitely something in there because, like I said, what he did in that ARCA race really impressed me. It really impressed me. It kind of reminded me of what, actually not even necessarily, I'd say it was even more impressive than actually, I was about to compare him to what Frankie did in ARCA, but I would say he was even more impressive than what Frankie did in ARCA because I thought there was more competitive race cars in that Rockingham race that we had than what we would usually have with Frankie when Frankie was racing ARCA. And then I think Frankie just made a bad step going to Ream. I don't think very much of Ream. I think it's a really bad race team. I don't think anybody's going to have any success there, unfortunately. But just to continue with the Frankie example, I guess, when Frankie was racing ARCA, I thought there was he showed a lot of potential. I think he showed a lot of potential that he could be somebody competitive at a Truck Series or a Riley Series level. I don't know about Cup, but I saw that he could have that potential if you got him into a good enough race car. Well, Cleetus already has a foot in the door when it comes to a place like Richard Childress Racing. If he continues to hone in on his skill and continue to work in ARCA, I don't know how many races he has scheduled for ARCA this year per se, but whatever it is, I think he should extend that schedule because I do see something in there. I saw Danny Lawrence's response to the whole weekend. He obviously gave him a lot of shit for practice and qualifying and this and that. But his reaction to his ARCA East race was kind of how I felt as well. I'm like, he showed me something in that race. He showed me that he can potentially become a NASCAR driver and be competitive in the higher series to a certain degree. But he needs to continue to work at it. And so far what he's been doing, he's been working really hard. And I know at this point he has seen what everybody said. He's seen everybody's comments about his performances and stuff. He let it be known that it did bother him the first couple of days, but it seems like he's just gotten over it and gotten used to it, and he's kind of ignoring it now, and he just needs to continue to do that, because if he continues to ignore it and continues to put in the work in the sim and with as much testing as he can, I don't know if he's actually, I think he has bought the late model, but he should enter like some Cars Tour races or some sort of late model division racing and try to do some races over there. Just really get behind the wheel of any sort of stock car he can really get behind, uh, get behind the wheel of. Even if that means not a stock car, like even getting into maybe one of these road cars or literally anything that's competitive, I would say. If he can get into any car that's competitive and just continue to hone in on his craft, I think there is a potential for him. I can see him winning an ARCA race. Maybe not this year, but I can definitely see him winning an ARCA race at some point on the trajectory that he potentially is on if he continues to work the way he's working. And at the same, I think one thing that also was a big issue for him in the O'Reilly race, and I heard Ty Dillon on the radio. I was listening to Cleetus McFarland's in-car throughout a good portion of the race. He was really over driving the corners, and I think one thing he needs to figure out and kind of get used to is when you race multiple races throughout the weekend, it can get pretty difficult with how you race each track because you approach that track completely different. Rockingham, I'm talking about. You approach that track completely different in an ARCA car compared to an O'Reilly Series car. The O'Reilly Series car, you need to be a lot more calm in the corner, a lot more brake, a lot more letting off the gas. When it comes to ARCA, you can be a lot quicker into the corners. You can go a lot faster. The aero isn't as big of a difference there. The cars are a lot more forgiving. You're also not constantly racing other drivers as much as you are in ARCA because ARCA, there is a wide spread of skill and how good your cars are. Like there are some cars that are going at least a second faster than the cars near the back of the field. And O'Reilly, I'd say it's a lot more condensed in just competition. So that's going to be something he's going to have to get used to. But like I said, he's racing for RCR, so it should end up being an easier transition than pretty much anybody that would be in the position that he is exactly in. And I've never seen this sort of career path for NASCAR before. It's definitely a different sort of career path for Cleetus. So he has a lot of obstacles still to face, I would say. I think he still has a lot of obstacles to face. He has a lot of stuff to do if he wants to actually become a legitimate NASCAR driver. And I do think there is going to be more things he has to do if he wants to get approved for Dega. Because at the moment, I would be very surprised if he gets approved for Dega. Because he didn't do any live green flag pit stops. He did get some help on some of those almost self spins from Austin Hill and another driver, I don't know. But he also did almost spin himself out a couple of times. He did actually spin himself out one time. And he also made that jump he only raced one race in the truck series and he spun out at the very beginning at Daytona. So I don't think it would be fair. And I would love to see Cleetus out in Talladega. If Cleetus ends up getting approved for Talladega, I'll clap for him. I'll be really happy for him because I'm a big fan of Cleetus. But if I'm just being honest and I'm being fair, it wouldn't be fair to approve him for Talladega when you haven't approved a lot of other drivers for these sort of tracks. I don't think it'd be fair. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Cleetus McFarland's overall performance during Rockingham weekend? Do you think he should be approved for Talladega? Let me know all your thoughts about Cleet and his NASCAR endeavors in the comments. But for now, I'm Trackside Larry saying peace.